Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Let's have a discussion. People have questions. They would like answers. Let's talk about the issues. Confront the things that may be difficult to address. The Black narrative. Greetings and welcome. My name is Chandra Muhammad, your host of the Black Narrative on the National Network View. And today we're going to be talking about food preparation with a master chef. And we'll introduce her in a few minutes. But before we do that, we want to go to this clip that's commemorating our late great sister, Cicely Tyson, who was a relative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let's take a look at this clip.
Today, we are acknowledging and celebrating the life of Cicely Tyson. Cicely Tyson was known to all people, but in Black homes, she was a permanent fixture. She was epitomized what it meant to shatter racial stereotypes of how Black women were being portrayed on TV and in the movies by only accepting vivid portrayals of strong African American women in the 1970s. These roles propelled her into stardom and fame as an extremist in the civil rights movement. Cicely Tyson was a natural-born leader, a trendsetter, a beacon of light and hope for her people. Cicely Tyson knew what she represented. An honorary Oscar, 3 Emmys, a pile of Emmy nominations, and a Tony all came her way. Just as fittingly for a woman who willed herself to matter, so did 8 NAACP Image Awards. There will never be another Cicely Tyson. She passed away on January 28, 2021. She was 96 years old. And this is your Black History Fact.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I'm going to bring in our guest, but we'll just say a little bit about our sister, Cicely Tyson, before we move forward. So I want to introduce to you Sister Chandra Muhammad, CEO of Shan, the Neighborhood Cook. And Sister, I just wanted to get your thoughts before we get right on into this interview on the passing of our beautiful sister. And you know that old saying, right? That that black don't crack, right? And Sister Cicely Tyson, she was so beautiful. I mean, I would not have been able to tell that she was in her 90s. And she left behind such a beautiful legacy. Would you like to say anything too about that?
I would. You know, seeing her on the screen really speaks to how it is necessary to eat to live, right? Because
Absolutely.
She actually shows what a woman can look like in the 90s and even past, that decade, if we just eat the proper foods, we, prepare them the right way. And so Cicely Tyson, although she has left us physically, is definitely here with us spiritually, especially as a woman. And for me as a cook, that's what I look for is, my saying is live long, eat at home, right? So right. I feel like, Cicely Tyson, not knowing very much about her personal life, but I am more than sure that she ate at home quite often to look the way Absolutely. That she did and to live as long as she did. So, yes.
Absolutely. I mean, she was always looking healthy, you know what I mean?
All the time.
And so, like you said, there definitely was some knowledge of how to eat to live. So we want to go right on into you. And that's why we're so happy that you've joined us on this program today, because we want to look like Cicely when we're in our 90s, right?
Yes.
And so, so you are the CEO
Divine
oh,
Creations Cuisine. Divine
I'm
Creations
sorry.
Cuisine. Divine Creations
Okay.
Cuisine.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Divine Creations Cuisine. That's right. And you are not a chef, but a certified cook. So, can you explain to us what's the difference between a chef and a certified cook?
So I always like to give praise where praise is due. Okay. And so when you talk about a chef, you're talking about someone who has studied, who has gone to school, who has really paid their dues in the kitchen, and they've probably worked in various restaurants to become an actual chef. They go through long, grueling hours to become that chef. They just do a lot more than what I would call a certified cook. However, for me, the main difference is, again, the difference in the schooling versus someone who has just really learned how to cook through experiences, learn how to cook from sisters and your mom and your grandmother and friends. Coming into the nation years ago, when I came into the nation, I learned how to cook even better than I did prior to coming into the nation. And so I like to call myself a certified cook because I don't have that chef hat, that chef degree, but I do feel like I have that degree of knowledge to make foods that are healthy, quality, nutritious, foods that can help us look like Cicely Tyson. So that would be my definition on that.
Yes, ma'am. And, with the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we definitely surpass whatever this world's certifications, are for, whatever they want to classify as so-called experts, right? So for you have 35 years, you were born in Texas with a Louisiana Creole roots. And I noticed some of the videos that I watched, you always talk about those spices, right? So, yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself then.
So, again, I go by the name Sean the Neighborhood Cook here in Houston. Divine Creations Cuisine has been in business for about 16 years. I have really come up with the name Sean the Neighborhood Cook just because I love to cook different types of foods that may come from any type of neighborhood, right? I like to say I can cook from the hood to, to Beverly Hills. So that's kind of how that name came about. And it really came about within this last year with everything that was going on with the pandemic. Being at home, we got an opportunity to cook even more than we had in the past. And so, me just trying some different actual menus and trying some different recipes, sharing them with friends all over the world, those who live here in America and abroad, people that I know, I would share my recipes with them in different neighborhoods. And so, that's what I did just in the past years. But obviously I'm married. My husband is also in the Nation of Islam. We have two beautiful boys, 15 and 18. And this is just my passion. I absolutely love to make people smile and love to make people happy with food, good quality food. And so, that's my story.
And so, what we're going to do is we're going to get into some of the science, right, behind how to eat to live, the science behind food preparation, because it is a science, isn't it?
Absolutely. It definitely is.
And so you do programs where you teach children, you teach individuals. You have a past program called Fafa Away Foods, one called Show Stopping Sides. Now, of course, I wish that I had seen that one. And then you have one that's Amazing Apps. Is that correct?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about these programs and a little bit about your social media platforms, especially your Instagram, where you can see all those delicious foods that you prepare.
All right. Well, we'll start off with, let's start with the website. So the website is www.thedivinecreationscuisine.com. On the website, you'll find all of the services that Divine Creations Cuisines offer. And through there, you can also pull up all of the videos. The video series is called Sharing is Caring. Again, came up with that in the past year, trying to help people cook more at home, right? And so Sharing is Caring came about. And each week we drop a video on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, actually, on Saturday morning. And I highlight a particular themed food. And so with that, that's where you find the far, far away foods. And you'll find what we're doing now is the amazing apps. So you'll be able to see that in the next few weeks. We also offer the cooking coaching classes, either by Zoom or in person, protected, obviously, with our masks and social distancing. But those are things that have really come into play in the last year because, again, people are just trying to do something different. And so with those particular series, what I also try to do is make sure that I'm educating our followers. Again, you can follow me at Instagram and Facebook at Divine Creations Cuisine. Okay. And so when you follow me each Saturday and even every Tuesday and Thursday, we'll drop a video that either has me cooking something. I may have some family members on there. And then we're talking about current events usually. We'll talk about things that are going on now, or we may talk about something that I feel like people should know about cooking in the kitchen, and then also on Tuesday and Thursday, we have something called Kitchen and Conversation, where I'm talking to someone else, either my husband or the children, or I may have some guests on the show. And we're talking about things that are important to women. Sometimes it may be things that are important to cooking or the children and we do bring the brothers in as well. We do bring the brothers in because my husband's on the show with me every once in a while. So, but yeah, so
he's the tester, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, my son and he is the tester. Both of them are testers, actually.
Right.
I have a house full of men, so they all are testers. They can't wait till I'm done with the show so they can have the leftovers. But yes, those shows are great shows. The Far, Far Away came to me because I love to travel. And I definitely have been tested within this last year because I've not been able to travel. But what I like about traveling is the experience that it leaves with you. And so what I did was I did meals of all the places that I've traveled. So I went to Italy, Mexico, some different places. And so I highlighted those meals in that series. The series are usually about 5 weeks long.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so we're going to take a quick break real quick. But when we come back, I want to ask you about the importance of teaching children, because you have this series where you're teaching children how to prepare food. And I think that that's so very important. So when we come back, we're going to go right on into that. So we want to take this break and we'll be right back.
Awesome. Thank you.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Greetings. This is Chandra Muhammad with National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline says, "Farewell to a Giant of Africa." The passing of Jerry John Rawlings of Ghana not only marked the loss of a major political figure for the West African nation, but also marked the loss of an important leader in the struggle for progress for Africa and the Black world. May Allah be pleased with our brother. This week's Final Call issue number 18, center page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is entitled, "The Principle and the Need for Justice." To read more, subscribe to FinalCallDigital.com and tune in to Final Call Radio. This is Trigger Shakir Muhammad with the NNVnews.com Final Call cover story.
All right. Greetings. Once again, my name is Steve Muhammad, your host for the Black Narrative. And it's definitely important for us to support independent Black media, right? Especially in this day and time. So we are talking with Sister Chandra Muhammad, CEO of Divine Creations, Cuisine. And we were talking about the importance of starting our children out right. tell us a little bit about that, and let's talk a little bit about the importance of teaching our children how to properly prepare food.
So I'll start by saying that a lot of what we've done in the last few years here in Houston at Mos 45 is try to prepare meals with the children early on. We actually developed the first culinary team. We call it the Junior Culinary Team here in the Houston area. It was supported obviously by our Sister Captain Malika Muhammad. And with that particular culinary team, we would basically cook on Sunday for everyone in the mosque, right? And so we would do that as a fundraiser. And in that time, the children were able to come in and learn the proper way to, cook rice, the proper way to make a good pot of bean soup, the proper way to clean, if you're going to eat meat, clean your meat properly, with either apple cider vinegar or salt water, the proper way to clean vegetables, the proper way to pray over your food and pray for everyone that's in the kitchen to ensure that the meal that you prepare is done with love and that the people can taste it once they eat it. And so I think for children, the reason I absolutely love working with children is, of course, they are children, and so they're excited about everything, right? So they want to try. They're okay with making a mistake. You can tell them to do something, and they'll do it, and then they want to come back for more and more and more. And so I really enjoy that. And the ones that I know that love to cook and are either on the culinary team or even those who are not, they just love to be around us because I make it fun in the kitchen. And the way we make it fun is we sort of just make sure that each meal that we're preparing, we take it step by step. And so that they understand, like you said earlier, the science behind everything that we do, right? So if I teach them how to make rice, I'll say, okay, we have to wash the rice, 3 times to get all of the impurities out of the rice, right? Or as much as we can out of the rice. And they'll see it go from a cloudy state to a clear state. And then we'll talk a little bit about, why do you think that is? And then I go into explaining, well, that's the starch that's on the rice that you're sort of washing off. And then, they kind of learn as they go, and then they have fun doing it. And so that's just one example of how we teach our youth how to prepare something as simple as rice. Right. And so after that, then I teach them how to put it on a pan and put a little olive oil on it and put it in the oven and brown it so that you can take even more of the starches and impurities off, out of the rice. And so those are the types of things that, we do in the kitchen or when we're teaching our youth. And I love to do that even with the coaching cooking classes. We'll educate as we're cooking something fun. And even if it's something like pizza, okay, we don't eat pizza, but they're children. They're going to eat pizza every once in a while. I'll teach them how to make pizza with cauliflower, and so we try to make it very educational as well as nutritious. And when they learn to do that, they will grow up wanting to cook for themselves and their families. Okay. And this can be for, women and men. I have little boys who, of course, we talked about chefs earlier, but male chefs run the world, really. So, even men will come into the class, or the young boys will come into the class and want to learn how to cook for themselves and cook for others. Right. And so that it gives you a great feeling of gratification, shall I say. Once you do, you go from the start, and that's like with anything, right? You start from the beginning and you finish with this beautifully prepared meal. And then someone puts that fork to their mouth and comes out. And they're like, oh, that is so good. That's what the children love to see. They love to
right.
Get excited about what they've made. And so that's the joy that I have when I'm cooking with the children and helping to teach them the proper way to make good quality food. And also, we even take trips to the grocery store so they can know how to purchase foods, the right vegetables and things of that nature.
Yes, and we're going to definitely get into that too, because that's a science, right? And so we're talking, let's get into the scientific part of it. So we have the books by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, How to Eat to Live 1 and How to Eat to Live 2. So we have Message to the Black Man, Our Savior Has Arrived, The Fall of America, but those are only one. But the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has 2 books on how to eat to live. And the opening of those books tell us that these cookbooks are not cookbooks, but survival books, right? Especially now, survival books open with letting us know that this is from God himself in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. Can you tell us a little bit about the science? Why is, as we're saying, cooking a science?
So cooking is a science because basically, it is like the body. Okay. And so you want to put in your body what the body can digest, what the body can absorb. And that's why in How to Eat to Live, the messenger teaches us how to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, because those are from the earth. And so since the body is really, we sort of came from the earth, if you look at it that way. And so if we're putting those fruits and vegetables inside of our body, it is the same thing, right? And so scientifically, just like we talk about the 9 planets, we talk about the 9 systems in our body, so goes eating foods from the earth, putting it into our vessel, which is something like an earth, right? And so I feel like, I know, based on the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that if we eat in that way, along with fasting, eating 1 meal a day, working up to every other day and every 2 days, once we get to that point, those particular things will help us, not to bring, our sister back into this light, but help us look like Cicely Tyson, right? All of us. Help us stay here long enough to enjoy those things that we have worked so hard for in the past years. So speaking on the science, that's what I can talk about, just being able to grow your own foods, right? And being able to understand the nutrients that come from the soil and the earth when you grow your own foods, and be able to use that in your kitchen, when you go into the kitchen and you pray, or maybe you might read an excerpt of How to Eat to Live, and it just makes you feel it produces, endorphins, right? Kind of like when you work out, you start to feel real good because, oh man, I feel good. I burned some calories, your cortisol is down. You just feel good. Well, that's the same sort of feeling you'll get by eating foods that are wholesome. Again, as the messenger teaches in How to Eat to Live.
Absolutely. Thank you, sister. That's beautiful right there, right? Because, I myself, I like to cook. I won't say that what I cook, people may like to eat because I'm not as good as you, right?
I'm sure it's fine.
But, I think if you go into the kitchen with the right mentality,
absolutely,
it's almost like therapeutic. It's a way to, just have a moment with yourself, if you will, as you're mixing the ingredients and things like that. So before we get into these genetically modified and processed foods that you did touch on, and how they are not agreeable with our body, right? We want to first talk about the science of the kitchen. How should we, tell us about the kitchen? How should it look? How should we go into this arena, if you will, to prepare food?
So before you even step into the kitchen, you pick up your Quran, you pick up your Bible, you pick up whatever it is that is your religious foundation, and you pray. You pray that what will come out of the kitchen leads you closer to that spiritual being. For us, it's Allah. For someone else, it may be, God or Jesus or Buddha, whomever it is, you pray. Right? Because whatever you want to come out of that kitchen, you want that to come out of an individual, right? So because when they eat your food, that whatever you cooked should bring the best out of that individual. And so before you go into the kitchen, you always pray. Obviously, you want to make sure that your kitchen is spotless. It's impeccably clean. Your countertops, we are in the MGT, we're learning even more how to be better at cleaning our kitchens, not just cleaning, but sanitizing. You know, COVID has done a number on us, and not necessarily a bad number. I think that it's done a good number on us because it has elevated us to a point that we would have never thought of before. You know, I thought I knew how to cook and clean, but I've gotten even better in this 2020 and moving forward, knowing what we know about how to kill germs and bacteria and, you know, those types of things. So knowing what, what dish liquid to use, what cleaning solutions to use, you know, how you can use baking soda and apple cider vinegar and things that are in your home to clean your kitchen properly so that when you're able to wash your vegetables, you're okay with putting them in the sink. You don't need a bowl because your sink is so clean, you can literally eat off your sink, right? Or eat out of your sink. So in terms of cleaning and preparing the kitchen, you know, praying first, making sure that your kitchen is clean. I know for me, I can't even come into the house. The boys already know. If my kitchen is not clean, I don't even step foot in the door. If I'm leaving, is the kitchen clean? So because it's a mental thing. For me, cooking is my passion. It's my passion. It's my mental. If I don't care what kind of day I'm having, if it's a bad day, if I go in and cook something, it's all good for me. It might not be for everyone else, but for me. So when I go into that space, it definitely has to give me that light, if you will. So those are the two things I think you would start off with. And then, of course, it's a whole nother class about prepping food and getting ready for that. But definitely, spiritually speaking, make sure that you're praying, you know, read, like I said, sometimes I'll read an excerpt from How to Eat to Live or any of the Messenger's books. Sometimes I may pull something up on Facebook about nutrition. Oh, I'm going to make, you know, something today and I want to use turmeric because it's great for inflammation. You know, you may do something like that, but just preparing your mind to go in to create something that is going to come out of somebody else in a good way.
Yes, wonderful. And, you know, before this pandemic, we saw a lot of programs, right, that talked about having a clean kitchen and not, for instance, cooking your vegetables on the same countertop that you would have your meats because of the bacteria. And so you're absolutely right. You know, this whole thing is teaching us, or we're being reintroduced or re-educated on how to properly do this and that. You know, one of the things, of course, that you touched on is praying. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the science, though, of our thoughts. And because we're touching the food, we're kneading the bread, we're you know, doing whatever, and our thoughts are chemicals. And when we're upset, for instance, that you would say would not be a good time to prepare the food, because would that not affect the chemistry of the food?
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, you know, speaking about thoughts specifically, you know, when you are not, and even me as someone that loves to cook all the time, when I'm not in a good mood or if something is really bothering me, although I said that it makes me feel better when I cook, I still have to make sure that, like I said, I say a prayer, I go and prostrate, I do something to sort of change my mindset before I go into the kitchen, because you definitely will feel or taste the difference in food that if you weren't feeling well, or, you know, you were in a bad mood, you know, somebody, you know, cut you off before you got home, whatever the case, you're still upset about that. And you go and prepare, I don't know, some bean soup or some spinach enchiladas or whatever you're going to do. You're going to taste the difference. And not only you, your family is going to taste the difference. You know, my boys will tell me in a minute, Mom, were you having a bad day? Because that didn't taste like the ones you did last time. You know, so the science definitely is there. You know, of course, in our brain, we have dopamine, we have neurotransmitters, you know, we have, like I spoke about earlier, you have cortisol, you have all of these things that help to regulate our moods. And so, you know, whatever you need to do, meditate. I know some people will meditate before they go in and cook. These are people normally that are people that really don't like to cook, but they just go in and cook because they have to do it. But when they meditate, it helps to put them in a more calm state of mind, to where those levels of neurotransmitters are not elevated. And so, again, speaking to the science, it doesn't put those types of, I guess, in terms of what goes into the food, that's not going into your food, the sort of the way you feel, if you will, because all of those neurotransmitters that have to do with your emotions have to do with feeling, right? And so I think, I mean, that's definitely, and I have a scientific background in some ways. And so that's the other part that I love about food. You know, I laugh about cooking all the time. And last night we made cookies. Night before last, we made cookies. That's the only thing I bake. I love to cook. I'm not a baker, but there are a few things I like to bake, and cookies are one of them. And when I was making them with the boys, they were like, "Oh, Mom, just, use this, use that." I'm like, no. We need to get the measuring spoon for this, because baking is a true science. True science, right? And your cookies will come up. I'm just not going to say they're going to come out jacked up. Okay. If you don't follow that recipe to a T. Now for cooking, it's more of an art. So if I, put a little extra tomato in it, it might just taste a little tomatoey, but it's not going to be off, so hopefully that helps. Hopefully this is helping. And people kind of tie the two together, the cooking, the science, and the art, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is helping a whole lot, because many people may not even thought of, how the chemicals of or how the thoughts can translate into the chemicals being passed into the food, and the chicken looking beat up. Yes. Instead of looking moisturized. Why it's so tough, right? Exactly. So we're about to take another small break, but when we get back, I would like to talk to you about how we go and look for food in the grocery store. Because, I mean, we can go into the grocery store and there are so many processed foods. And of course, they have it to where the foods are not labeled, so we don't know if they're genetically modified. I mean, this really is a society of death. So we'll go right on into that after this break. This is Steve Muhammad with National Network News. You're watching The Black Narrative, and we'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
National Network View was recently banned from the media platform YouTube.com. Within 12 hours, the NNV IT department quickly sprung into action with an independent service system to back nnvnews.com. The nation's news network is now streaming content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As we extend gratitude for the believers' financial support through donations, this media activism will not stop. Please continue to be a part of a force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Donate to NNV News. This is Clifton Muhammad with National Network View.
And we're back, and we're going to go into talking about how to go through the grocery store and purchase the right foods for you or your family. And we're being joined by Sister Chandra Muhammad, who is the CEO of Divine Creations Cuisine. And those words just roll right off your mouth. Divine Creations Cuisine. We love that. That sounds good. That's making me hungry just saying the title, right? But when we go into the grocery store, they tell us to purchase foods on the outside and not on the inside, because on the inside they say that those are where you have your processed foods and your genetically modified foods. So if you can, first, what is wrong with processed foods?
So processed foods are not of the earth, as I spoke about earlier. When you don't buy foods that are of the earth, from the earth, untampered with by any added chemicals like GMO foods are, those particular foods are the ones we encourage people to eat, right? Those fruits and vegetables that come from the earth that do not have chemicals sprayed on them to keep them alive or to make them grow bigger and better and faster so that they can be sold quicker in the stores. And so that's why they actually developed what they call genetically modified foods, so that they can sort of alter what the food is to make them grow bigger, grow faster. It's all about money. Is right. What it is. It's all about money. So it's about making more money. How fast can we make this money with what we have? And so rather than going to the local farmers and finding more farmers to give you more food so that you could sell more, they decide to, make genetically modified foods. And so what a lot of people don't know is that, America really is one of the places where is the place where genetically modified food was derived in this country. And so I remember I'll tell this quick story. It's very quick. I remember when I went to Italy, I was like, what? This is so odd. Everything that I ate in Italy, they either had a garden next to the restaurant in the alley, or I could see them making it fresh behind the wheel. And so I just thought it was so interesting that it didn't matter, what I was looking at. It was, they made, we don't eat pasta, right? But I'm in Italy. I had some pasta in Italy. Right. They made it in front of me, in front of me. I saw them make it. And so, we are not used to seeing that here in America. And so when we go to the grocery store, to answer your question, the genetically modified foods are inside, like you mentioned earlier, inside of the store. Out on the outskirts of the store are either your meats, your vegetables, your fruits, and sometimes dairy. And so all of those things actually are in How to Eat to Live that we can eat. But even when you buy those things, you have to be very careful. It really depends on where you're shopping. Okay, so there are going to be stores that carry better quality foods, better quality vegetables, meaning they go through an inspection of those foods. Everybody knows Whole Foods. Whole Foods is the place to go, right? Because they know that they do an inspection on all of the foods that are in that store. They do not accept foods that are GMO foods, right? And so, not saying that everybody needs to go to Whole Foods. Everybody can't go to Whole Foods. Right? And that's okay. But whatever store that you're in, make sure that you're getting the freshest vegetables and fruit that you can. Read the labels. Look at the back of the labels. Sometimes it will actually say this is a non-GMO food, meaning it's not genetically modified. And so just those simple things on the packages will help you to buy the right foods and take them home to your family, and you don't have to worry about it. Right. And so I think that, with that, it's hard to get away from it completely because it's in everything. It's in everything. But where you can make a change, you can definitely do so with with buying fruits and vegetables that are fresh. If you can buy organic, do buy organic. There are some vegetables and fruit that it really doesn't matter if it's organic because it's safe to eat them. But things like strawberries, I would always buy organic for strawberries whenever possible, because the flesh of the strawberries, what they spray on them just goes right inside of a strawberry. So that's a tip for y'all for today. But yeah, so when you go to the grocery store, just stick to those outskirts. I'm not saying you can't have a little fun and go into the middle sometime and get a snack or whatever you want for the children, but just make sure when you're looking for those snacks that you read the labels. If you can't understand what those labels say, if you can't pronounce them, put it right on back on the shelf.
That's absolutely right. And I've been writing down so many notes while you were speaking, right? One of the things that I wrote down that I read was that a lot of these genetically modified foods, and you mentioned Italy, right? A lot of these genetically modified foods are prohibited in Europe and they're
Absolutely.
sold here.
Absolutely.
Of course, the Food and Drug Administration, and I wanted to mention something that Minister Dr. Ava mentioned
Mhm.
is that food is a drug. And they say, so you have the Food and Drug Administration, but many will call it the Fraud and Death Administration, right?
Mhm.
But the Food and Drug Administration
Mhm.
allows these genetically modified foods to be sold to us, while over in Europe, these foods are prohibited.
Yeah.
And another thing that, as you were talking about the strawberries,
Mhm.
um, also, can you talk about these seedless
Yeah.
foods? I mean,
Yeah.
our young people are growing up, and I'm asking you this question because we may know, but they may not know that these foods should have seeds in them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So anytime you go to buy well, I say fruit or vegetables because some people think the tomato is a vegetable, but a tomato is really a fruit, right? So
Right.
anything that has a seed in them is considered a fruit. It either grows on a vine, or it could grow on the ground, but it could be something like a cantaloupe, right, which grows on the ground. If it does not have seeds in them, more than likely they are genetically modified, right?
Mm.
And so what that means is they may have crossed it with something else, make what's called a hybrid fruit. And so, sometimes they'll take the seeds out, throw them away, and put something, a chemical or something in them so that they can make them grow again, bigger, faster, what they would consider better, right? To sell to the grocery store so that we go in and buy them. And so, but you're right, having traveled to I haven't traveled everywhere, but having traveled to a couple of different places outside of America, the Caribbean islands, they don't have GMO foods. Mexico, they don't have GMO foods in most cases, so I think that, if we're just a little bit more educated on, I mean, a step forward in the right direction is a step forward, right? So we're not
Right.
asking you all to make a change today and throw everything away in your refrigerator now, but little baby steps. When you go to the grocery store, start reading those labels. Buy some apples that are organic this time, and next time you may buy something else that's organic. So I just would like to tell the audience to just be careful when you're going into the store, and take the time, make sure you're taking the time in the grocery store. We are rushing. This is the day of rushing through everything. And so
Right.
I think that the one thing that you should make sure you save time for is to go into the grocery store and buy the foods that will help you and your family stay out of the hospitals, stay out of, the doctor's office, because you definitely want to make your meals your medicine, for sure. That's kind of my little thing. Make your meals your medicine, right?
I
And of
love
course,
that.
the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, even in How to Eat to Live, that our kitchen is our medicine cabinet, right?
Mhm.
So there's not an ailment out there that can't be treated with good food, right?
Right.
There's not one out there, or with the proper cooking of food, and the foods that are grown properly, right? And
Mhm.
so if we can start with baby steps on, buying fruits and vegetables that we know that are not, and again, we won't know all of it, but you can ask questions. They usually, by law now, they're supposed to put it on, not necessarily the fruit and vegetable, but they should put a sign there that says that it is, because it's a thing. I mean, we are not the only ones who do not want to eat I keep saying do not want to eat genetically modified foods. A lot of
Right.
people don't want to eat genetically modified
Right.
foods, right? Because they want
And
to be healthy. Those things do not even digest in your body.
right.
You're supposed to
Right.
eat, and it's what you eat is supposed to come out, and you're supposed to cleanse, right? With drinking enough water and eating the proper foods and fasting. But if you eat a lot of genetically modified foods, those things just sit in your body, and guess what it does? It wears away at your organs, wears away at your cells. And so, yeah, I mean, it's
Right.
that
Oh,
we could
wow.
do a whole nother show on that.
Hey, we sure could. Because you know what? Did you remember it was some time back where they would show they would show a fresh hamburger, and then they would show a hamburger and fries. And then they would show a hamburger and fries, that same hamburger and fries 50 years later,
And it's
and
the
it was
exact same.
the same. So not only does our body not digest it, but the natural, I guess, bugs or, whatever that breaks down food,
Yeah.
they're not even breaking down the food. We see certain memes where ants are walking around candies and things like that. They won't even touch it. They don't even recognize it as food.
Right.
And one last thing is a lot of our obesity is due to the fact that these foods are so, as we read in How to Eat to Live, are so robbed of nutrients that we become obese because our body is still hungry because we're not getting the proper nutrition, right?
Yes, that's that good old candida. The candida, that sugar. It feeds
Yes,
off of
absolutely.
those genetically modified foods. It feeds off of the sugar that's in those foods, which is high fructose corn syrup in most cases. Again, a whole nother show. But yeah, if you can get foods that have, natural, and even if it's just regular cane sugar, that's still better than high fructose corn syrup. And so especially if you have, other ailments, if you have like diabetes or something, you definitely want to stay away from that. Because like you said, if an ant won't eat it, you shouldn't eat it,
Right.
And I remember I was talking to, I don't know, it may have been another sister here in Houston, and we laugh and joke about things that we put in our hair. So our hair, of course I have braids now, but my hair is natural. And I was like, oh my gosh, we laugh and we say, oh, we want the juices and berries for our hair. But if you can't eat what you put in your hair, you shouldn't put it in your hair. That's a whole nother story. But those are the types of things that you want to really feed your body, because we talked about proper thoughts or positive thoughts. That comes from what you eat, my husband always tells me, who you're around, what you're looking at on TV, and also, making sure that you surround yourself. And I said this earlier, surround yourself around good people, positive people, and so that's what I always talk about too in my videos, is use the kitchen as that outlet. Get in there with your friends and your family and talk about, what's going on today and how you can help make a change there. And then sit down and, get to that stove and y'all make a meal together while you talk about how we can help others, the way we're helping ourselves. And so, but I hope that helps. You asked me a question earlier, and I don't think I answered it. I wanted to say something about the pepper, the spices from earlier when you asked me about that. And so, I of course have Louisiana roots, and so almost everything I make is spicy. You have to tell me, okay, Shauna, neighborhood cook, tone the spice down a little bit because I like spicy food. But cayenne is actually very good for you. It's a natural detox, and it cleanses your organ. It cleanses your organs and your cells, actually. And so, of course, you don't want to eat too much of it. You don't have to eat it every day, but it is good for you. And it also is good for your brain. It helps to level your neurotransmitters. And so, I kind of pride myself on making foods, different types of food, and I add what's called a Creole twist to it. And that Creole twist is usually bell peppers, onions, celery, and cayenne pepper. So almost all of my food has that, and those particular ingredients are phenomenal for your body. They're water-based, they're antioxidants, they're anti-inflammatory, and like I said, we should constantly cook foods that will help to cleanse us naturally. And if we're fasting, can't nobody touch us if we're fasting. Make sure that we're cleansing. We can eat good food, we got to make sure we're cleansing as well.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you touched on that fasting, right? Because even though we're trying to eat right and trying to eat organic, we know that in some situations, even the meat, the meat the cows may be organic, right? Grass fed. However, the grass might not be organic. Or now they're talking about how these genetically modified seeds are dropping into farmers. The whole system is wrecked. So fasting is very important. I wanted to ask you about your catering, right? You mentioned it a little bit time before, and how the pandemic has affected you either positively or negatively.
Mhm. Actually, to me, I think that the pandemic has really, as I mentioned earlier, elevated and helped me to pivot our business in a way that I feel like actually helps others even more than I was before, with the actual physical catering side. Now, we still do cater. We do family style meals. I cater all events, typically on the weekends. Everything usually that was done at the mosque, if it had to do with cooking, the culinary team, the junior culinary team, and the senior culinary team, shall I say, or the MGT culinary team, would make sure that we prepare those meals. So I would say in the last year, the difference was the fact that us not being at the mosque. We weren't doing as much cooking, of course, because we weren't at the mosque because of the pandemic. However, I am grateful, and my family is grateful, really, that we were able to pivot this business to the social media platforms, that we can reach even more people to help them be better cooks at home and help them to see the value in cooking at home rather than eating out. Because in the beginning of the pandemic, we were all quarantined, right? And so when we were quarantined, we couldn't go out to get anything to eat for a little while. I know in Houston, they opened it back up because, Houston's a large city. So they opened it back up. But some of us were so scared to even go out. We're like, no, we're not even eating from anywhere. And that's really where, they didn't want to eat from anywhere, So even though the restaurants were closed down. And for me, my business really kept going because people trusted me and they trusted us, because of the way that Divine Creations Cuisine, cooks, and the foods that we use, again, being quality and nutritious and affordable. We were still getting calls, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth. Unfortunately, with a lot of people passing away in the last year, and not even just due to COVID, but just people that have passed away, I think I probably cooked for more repasts last year than anything, unfortunately. But I did do that on the catering side. And then, of course, the family style meals. People would purchase a family style meal on the weekend, and they'd have it for dinner on Sunday. And that would be one less day that mom has to cook, or one less day that dad has to cook. So to answer your question, it didn't affect us in a negative way. I would probably say at all. It was all positive for us, for sure.
Okay. Fantastic. And so we want to ask, before we move on, we just have a few more questions to go. And I want to thank you once again. This is an excellent conversation and so important, especially at this day and time. And you are really answering these questions. And I hope people are, because, keeping it simple for us, some of us, we need it put to us in a way that we can really understand the importance of it, right? So I want to ask you this question. How important is it, the aesthetics, right? How important is it for our food to look delicious instead of, just maybe throwing something together? Because sometimes some food doesn't look good, but it's just how you put it on that plate. It looks so good.
Well, I mean, it's so funny you mentioned that. I just had a conversation. I'm going to do an analogy here. My husband and I was talking about just relationships. We talk about relationships all the time. And we also talk about relationships on Kitchen Conversations. So y'all drop in, look at those videos every once in a while. It's pretty interesting. And we talk about how women don't always look at looks when they're looking for a mate. And then my husband's like, well, men look at looks. Like the first thing they see is how you look. They want to, then you can, then y'all can talk if it's something that he approves of. Well, that's the same way with food. You're not going to approach a plate that doesn't look appealing, that doesn't look like, that it's going to do. It doesn't even look, even if it's good for you, if it doesn't look like it's good for you, you're not going to eat it. And I get that with some vegetables. Sometimes the children will be like, I'm not eating a Brussels sprout, Mom. I don't care how you cook it, what you do with it. It just does not look appealing to me, right? Hopefully they'll grow out of that. But if something doesn't look appealing on the plate, it just does not give that person who you cooked for, it doesn't give them any reason to want to even try it. And so I'm a stickler for making things look pretty, like my husband likes to say. I don't care about that. You just give it to me. Of course, he's my husband, right? So he doesn't care how it looks. But when I prepare meals for other people or do catering jobs, or when I'm doing my videos, it is imperative that the food look good, because even if it's something that people don't like. I remember cooking eggplant one time, and a friend of ours, I think it was a neighbor of ours, and they were like, "Oh my God, I've never had eggplant before." Like, "Oh, really?" And they're like, I was like, "Well, what made you try it now?" There's like, it looked good. Mm-hmm. It looked good. And so that's what you want to do. You want to make your food, cook them properly. Yeah. First of all, purchase them. Make sure that you're, getting the right vegetables that are not GMO where you can. Right. Make sure your kitchen is clean. Pray, clear your mind, meditate before you go into the kitchen. Make sure all your fruits and vegetables are washed properly with either salt water or some type of solution that maybe you can buy from the store that's all natural. And then, have fun with your family, prepping those vegetables and prepping that meat. If you eat meat, same thing. Make sure that you make it fun. And then when that meal is done, even when I'm eating with our family, I like to make the plate look pretty.
Absolutely.
And so it's very important.
So we just have just a few more. I just want to touch on 2 questions, and I'll just ask them to you both at the same time. Salt is in so many things. You know what I'm saying? We are getting salt. Of course, we talked about the processed foods, but there's so many different types of salt as well. Of course, we know that salt leads to high blood pressure, hypertension, heart disease. Can you tell us about salt? And can you end with telling us about how we can get one of those fabulous aprons?
Yes, absolutely, I can.
Yes. All right.
For sure. So it's interesting you say that about salt. So there are several different types of salt, as you mentioned. There's Himalayan salt, right? There is regular sea salt. There's iodized salt. There is Celtic salt. Salt, depending on where it comes from and whether it is processed, okay? Again, we go back to the GMO, right? So if you get salts that are in its more natural state, right? So the Mediterranean salts, the sea salts, the Celtic salt, those particular salts are salts that tend not to do those things you mentioned earlier if you do it in moderation, right? And so the key, and this is interesting, the key to the salt intake is not really just not just having too much salt. It's not drinking enough fluids. It's not drinking enough water. And that is key. And if you guys get a chance, if you all get a chance, go to the website or go to IG at Divine Creations Cuisine and look up my video on water intake. Because what happens is when you drink enough water for your body, everybody's different. And I know the messenger talks about the water intake, right? But if you drink enough water and you eat the proper amount of water-based vegetables, that salt will not attack your body the way that it would normally, as we know it, right? And so that is key, because your body takes in things, and what it doesn't need, it expels, right? Either through urination or defecation. So when you have too much salt in your body, the problem is it's just sitting there, right? And so you just want to make sure that you're drinking enough fluids to expel that excess salt in your body, or go work out. That's where the sweating comes in, right? Go and work out. Sometimes doing yoga, even meditating can help to start to detox the body, right? Wow. And so drinking the water with the salts will help. But to answer your question fully, the Mediterranean salts, the sea salts, and the Celtic salts are the best salts for us to use. And again, using it in moderation definitely, makes sense. I don't like bland food, so you're always going to taste salt in my food. It's not going to be salty, but it's going to have that kick of salt. Even in baking, salt is used in baking because it enhances the flavor. But when you're using the proper kind of salt, it'll help with minimizing that chance for disease progression. So
thank you.
Hopefully that helps.
So we'll end with those aprons and a lease program. I'm not sure, but if you could talk about those, the aprons, and then just give us information on how we can contact you, maybe be a part of the classes that you teach. And yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Awesome. So again, Divine Creations Cuisine in Houston, Texas. We can be found on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Divine Creations Cuisine. The website is www.thedivinecreationscuisine.com. Those beautiful aprons can be purchased by going on the website to our shop now and purchase your aprons there. Divine Creations Cuisine would appreciate it. We always do some type of community service events, and your purchase of those aprons, a lot of times we'll take those proceeds and be able to give back to the community. So thank you in advance for those who go online and purchase an apron. We are coming out with a seasoning, so be looking for the DCC seasoning line, as well as the Sharing is Caring cookbook that is in the making right now.
All right. Thank you, sister, for a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
And of course, we have to do this again because, as you know, we cut it short. We cut it short.
That's okay. I think we got a lot done.
Yes, we did. So thank you, sister, for joining us. And I want to just say to all of those who are watching, we want to thank you for tuning in to National Network View. And we want you to go and visit our sister's site and learn all that you can about how to eat to live, because in this day and time, it's really how to eat to survive.
Absolutely.
So thank you, sister. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Steve Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
The nation must acquire land. Production of food, clothing, and shelter. Freedom is independent agriculture. Farming is the engine of the nation.